Hi, everyone. This is a podcast about all things modern wellness and well being. And today, Adam is here with me. He is a meditation coach and teacher, and he employs a number of different methods to kind of get into different kinds of meditations and learn about yourself and your surroundings. So, thank you so much for being here. How are you doing, Adam?
I'm the best I've ever been. Thank you so much for inviting me, Anna, and really excited to be here. You're doing such a great job with this series. And from the episodes that I've watched and all the people that you've invited, it's just so, I'm so honored to be a part of what you're doing here. And I just really appreciate you. Thank you so much.
That's awesome to hear. Thank you as well. So, as you mentioned earlier in our conversation, later in the podcast, you'll walk us through some of the methods that you use. But before you
Mhm.
get into the more like how to technical things, I'd love to hear about your journey into the work you
Sure.
currently do.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the part of the fun is that we'll actually do some of these things during the podcast. So for those of you watching, this sit tight. We'll get to that stuff. And my story, um, there's a couple of versions of it. I'll go with the one that is the least traumatic to repeat, and I think a lot of us find healing paths through um, healing of traumas and healing of childhood issues. And for me, it was asthma that kept me from engaging on the playground the way most kids would. And I don't know if it's just because it's a stereotype and like I was, born into a little Jewish boy's body in this lifetime that they gave me an inhaler was like part of the outfit, like the little puffer. So, um, it got to a point where I was using that thing like every single day, first thing in the morning, last thing before bed, and then like sometimes in between. And what you get when you've been abusing albuterol and the other chemicals that are in there is what's called bromide poisoning. And so it forms what's called cherry angiomas. So I have like you probably can't see it on the camera, but like there's a red dot on my arm, and I've got a couple of red dots, and those are the bromide poisoning coming to the surface from me having done so much um, uh, movement meditation, whether it be yoga, Tai Chi, or my favorite, which is Qi Gong. It starts to detoxify the body, detoxify the lungs. And so what happened with me is that actually I was running a very successful web design agency, and I still am. But at the time, um, my health was really on a decline. I mean, being in this position, for so many hours, right, and
For sure.
staring at the screen, like that was starting to really affect, my posture, my breathing was even worsened by the career that I had chosen. And so I wasn't even looking for help. Honestly, I didn't even know there was help. But somebody found me, a guy by the name of Justin Blue, and he was the first person to teach me breathing meditations, qigong movements, the eight brocades of silk, the six healing sounds, and these various techniques. And within 6 months of working with me, actually over Skype at the time, this was over a decade ago. He lives in Niagara Falls, and over Skype, he was able to train me. And within 6 months, my asthma was gone. And within 2 years, my allergies were gone, seasonal allergies were gone, migraines, uh, you know, depression evaporated, and I was able to find this healing path. And like I said, he found me. It's I was blessed, um, and in counting that blessing and recognizing that showed up in my life without me even looking for it. Um, that's one of the reasons why I come on podcasts like this is because people might not even know what they're looking for or know that there's help out there. For me, I had just, you know, I had just accepted my fate. They handed me the inhaler. They said, "You've got asthma. Good luck with that." When in truth, this could have been taken care of 20 years prior if anybody in my community, and bless their hearts, my family, my community, they just didn't know, and they didn't have any access. So um, part of my life's purpose, I have found, is in sharing this legacy that is handed down from one person to another. You can't read this in a book. I mean, you can, but you can't really experience um, the full download. It's a full body download of this, what I call an ancient future technology. It's like it's a part of being a human being, and it really comes down to hygiene. That and I have this definition. It says that hygiene is conditions or practices conducive to maintaining health and preventing disease, especially through cleanliness. And so, meditation for me is an act of mental and spiritual hygiene. That I had not been cleaning my lungs, I had not been cleaning my sinuses, I had not been cleaning internally my organs of and that this is actually a natural biological thing that is it's like and I just it just clicked. I was like, brushing your teeth. It's like at the end of the day, if you haven't brushed your teeth all day, does it not feel like Cosby sweaters on your teeth? Like it feels like Coogee, like all fuzzy, you know. And then you brush your teeth, you're like, that feels so refreshing. It's no different. Like meditation is hygiene and clearing out the cobwebs and letting the dust settle, and then it just feels so refreshed and so rejuvenated. So um, I guess that's the best version. I think the most positive version of my journey story, how I found how this found me and what I'm doing it with it now. Um,
Yeah. That's a great perspective that you bring to just any kind of wellness practice. It's not just like, you have some time, so you just meditate or you run or you just do some things because, like, you feel like it one day. But if it's really part of, like, approach more like we approach daily hygiene, I think it makes so much sense.
yeah,
Um, and yeah, you certainly condensed a lot of information. So that was really great. Thank you for kind of, creating an overview.
yeah. I didn't want my life story to be the whole
Yeah,
podcast.
that could be another. So everyone's life stories. Yeah. Um, so one other thing I'd love to know about is some practices that you really love that you practice for yourself.
Well, as I was saying, qigong is my favorite, and so people ask, what's the difference between qigong and tai chi? And tai chi is like the most exquisite healing art that we have on this planet. There are forms of yoga that are also just magnificent, and similarly, movement meditation, any type of movement choreography can induce a meditative experience. And so the choreography themselves are medicinal in nature. And Tai Chi, as I was saying, is this. It's very majestic. It's very dance like, but unless you understand the fundamentals behind it, what you're moving and why, then doing something like this, right, doesn't it's just it's empty, right? It'll work, and but it's the difference between like a glass of wine and the whole bottle, right? You know what you're getting when you're getting it. Um so Tai Chi I love, and my favorite teacher, you might know from our community, Jan Lucanus, from he was the captain of the U.S. Championship Tai Chi push hands team, and so he was the one who actually really taught me Tai Chi most recently in the best way. Really helped me understand dynamics between myself and other people. I think a lot of meditation tends to be very self focused, and so I've got a penchant for the the very majestic art forms, and um, so with qigong, it's there's an awareness of moving energy, connecting with the breath, but also letting go of the need to control anything. And one of my teachers had explained that it's like we're trying to return to the baby state. We're trying to become our original design before any of the imprints and conditionings and programmings and control mechanisms and that then give rise to um, distortions and limiting beliefs and all those things that we talk about in the healing arts and psychotherapy and stuff like that, which is that um, as a baby, by definition of being, everything is provided naturally without any hesitation. The child must receive the fundamentals, air and water, but it also must receive love. And their studies have shown that a child, an infant without love, won't make it. And so it's part of the design. Love must be provided. And so recognizing that extrapolated into adult life, money and everything else is no different than what is naturally fundamentally your birthright, that you come into this world and everything is provided by design, by a natural state of being, by you just existing, that all of this is due you, and that it comes naturally, and that and that anything else is just in the way. And so qigong is the clearing of the pathways biochemically, mostly in the lymphatic system. And so when we imagine our, skeleton, and then the blue branching lines are the veins and the red branching lines are the arteries. And now if you imagine a yellow branching system on top of that, and if you can even feel like in your armpits or like up here, there'll be, like goose eggs, there'll be, blockages people that we just tend to get. And that's because the lymph, which is the sewage of the body, it's mucus based, and there's 3 times more of it than there is blood. So if the heart's pumping the blood, what's pumping the lymph? And the answer is your diaphragm, mostly. And so that's why swimming, running, yoga, dancing, and singing should be like the only things that we focus on at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day. Like we should get up and like run to each other singing, because the diaphragm needs to move to pump the lymph. It's biologically necessary to move the mucus, to move the sewage of the body into the digestive organs, so that what the digestive organs do naturally is eliminate waste and synthesize and absorb nutrients into the body. And unless that whole system is moving, and it's a reverse pumping action. So anybody, if you've ever seen any healers at work and they're doing like, that's because they're moving, they're pushing, and we call this muscle tendon change. They're pushing the lymph out of the extremities. We're moving that stuff, the debris. The blood is moving, and it's leaving deposits. The thoughts we think, the neural peptides that are created in the brain, it holds the chemical frequency of the emotion that we're feeling, and then it gets deposited into the body, and it gets stuck in the fat cells. And so movement is fundamental, and it can be so much fun. I don't know if you've ever done 5 rhythms. It's like a great gateway into like free form movement, and before you do structured dance, like, so this is like, qigong is all these things. It's my favorite my favorite one. I had a teacher, and he said, watch my qigong. He goes, oh, freak out. Dun, 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 dun. And it's like that kind of like giggling baby, like carefree, like getting to that place again. And it like opens the floodgates. So there's the law of attraction, there's the law of growth and contribution, there's the law of balance and harmony. There's a few other ones that go with the secret, and those things turn on. They're always on, but they get, when you clear the pathways, all of that stuff just starts to show up, and like it becomes this excite. It's a game. It becomes very gamified and very playful. Like, oh, everything is awesome. Like everything is working for me. People just show up. Like, and then, so then this becomes the science of synchronicity. And that's really my focus when I'm teaching, and what I'm trying to help people achieve as if there were a destiny, I call it a milestone. The milestone on the journey, one thing that you'll get to this village we call serendipity, where things just start to fire up. You're like, wow, how? Can't It's just unexplainable and it's magical. And um, so you can see. I'll let me field a different question because you can see I'll go on and on.
Of course, I'll definitely ask a little more about that later. And if you want to show us anything later as well, I'm happy to participate in that.
Cool.
Um, so you do talk about brain science as well as just like basic biology. I wanted to know if you wanted to bring any of that into the conversation as well.
Sure.
That seemed to be a really great kind of a gateway or path to kind of connect the meditation types you teach and to have most people kind of understand why it's important. When you say meditate, you think why, and I mean there are
Mm,
many reasons. Any reason you can think of could be your reason, and you've definitely
sure.
talked about some of those as well. I think if you want to bring up anything around the brain science and the biology, that would
Sure.
be really interesting.
Sure. So the conversational nature of our interaction here is existing in a brainwave frequency known as beta. And I could demonstrate high beta. It's like, and I do this in my videos. It's like, I woke up, I'm like, I missed the bus. I'm like, oh shit, I got to call the Uber. It says it's going to be 9 minutes away. Do I call and tell them I'm stuck in traffic? They're going to know I'm lying. Like, if you need to calm down, or if you're with somebody and you're like, you need to calm down, then they're in a high beta. And that panicky frenzy state is really bad for the heart. And it's really bad for the other organs as well. But we know, and like when you have to like calm somebody down, or like if you have to shake them, like we used to slap people, right? And thankfully we don't do it like that anymore. But that that high beta, right? In order to get out of that into what we've got now, is you just bring the shoulders up to the ears. So we can do this together. You just inhale the shoulders up to the ears. And the more that you commit to the like a fresh glass of lemonade, the more that you'll calm down. You'll feel it, right? Right. And so you unhook from that toxic emotion. Um, because who is really effective in that mode, right? Like what can you, and that's why we would slap people, get your stuff together. So the next brainwave frequency, as you're lowering so frequency being the amount of times per interval, right? So how frequent, right? And so in an interval, if you're lowering from 5 to 4 to 1, right? So alpha is your single focus, beta is your multi-focus, alpha is your single focus. And we get into this naturally. Anytime somebody comes up and you're like, I can't talk right now, then if you're working in the garden, or if you're trying to compose an email, like if have you ever been trying to write something like really specific and somebody tries to get yours, right? Like, because you're in alpha, and that's your single focus mode. So for people that are dealing with procrastination, or if they're having trouble getting, they're overwhelmed, they got a mountain of things, the easiest way to handle it is actually to just trigger the appropriate brainwave state that is responsible for being able to tackle a single focus job. And so that we'll do that. Let's do that together right now. So the alpha meditation, the meditation for alpha, is known as square breathing. And if you look up square breathing on Google, you'll see it's meditation for children. So it's beginner's meditation. And it's very simple. It's inhale, hold, exhale, hold. And so what you're going to do is just look around the room, and you're looking for a very bright color, whatever is not a light source, but just actually a solid color. And I've got mine. So I'm going to look at that color and get a good mental picture of the quality of that color. And then just dim your eyelids and breathe into my count: 2, 3, 4, and hold. 2, 3, 4, breathe out. 2, 3, and hold. 2, 3. 4. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4. Last time, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2.
Okay.
So come on back
Mhm.
and take a look at that color
Mhm.
and see if there's anything you notice about it.
Um, I don't know. I mean, I do feel more focused.
Yeah.
Um, but the color didn't change. I imagine some people see brighter or something like that.
Yeah, that's generally the answer, but not always, and that's okay. So one of my things one of my teachers says, notice what you notice, or noticing nothing at all. It's okay. But
Mhm.
how long did it feel like we were just doing that for?
Um, minutes, maybe like 3 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, because in, hold, out, hold at 4 seconds a piece, that was 160 seconds. So, it's only about, 2.5 minutes,
Mhm.
right? 120, it's like less than 2.5 minutes, but it felt 3, maybe even longer.
Mhm.
Um, because meditation is not something that takes time. A lot of people, they say, when am I going to find time to meditate? And I explain, meditation doesn't take time. It gives you time. And so as we begin to expand, and this is where mindfulness begins, is noticing what's going on externally, what's going on internally, what's going on the surface. We start to get a more vivid, and that's why the color is generally, people say it's either brighter, or they'll say it's dimmer, or they'll say it's fuzzier, or they'll say it's sharper. It's something different about it, because the brainwave has shifted, and therefore the perspective of the mind receiving data in the senses is going to be different. So something's going to be a little different. Now, you go and take that focus and apply it to a task, it's going to get done a lot better, because the wavelength is longer, meaning there's more time in the second, in the minute. There's more in there. There's more available, because it's not moving so fast
Is
physically.
is
It's
that like the state
yeah,
of relaxation? Like when you're feeling relaxed and your body is like doesn't hold on to tension, it's like time
yeah,
does move a little differently based on
Yeah,
how you're holding the tension or not, right?
exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Think about a surgeon can't be jumpy, right?
No, of course not.
So, and so they have, and so pilots, surgeons, they all have techniques that technically we would call meditation. Um, so, for anybody watching the podcast in that experience, I mean, now we're back in beta, but there was definitely a difference. So just noticing the difference, like at the moment, and it didn't take long to get into 2.5 minutes. And you actually, I could tell by ooh, like 2, 3, the length of my ooh, I can tell how relaxed you are because I can see it when I'm watching the clock. Like right now, 3, 4, 5, 6 was much different from 3, 4, 5, and it's already like you know you were getting 2 seconds out of every second in your, so
Interesting.
like while watching the clock is really fun, especially if it's a manual clock and you can see the second hand will hang. It's really bizarre kind of, it's like but you have to be leading it to notice, but the second hand will hang sometimes when people drop in really deeply into the meditation. The second hand will just stick and you'll be like 4, like, and like what, and then it's like wow, like that was a long second. So it's kind of bizarre that way.
Yeah, that's a really interesting and like very tangible way to talk about time. And
Yeah,
I think the concept of time definitely is connected with, practicing different kinds of meditations and different kinds of, for example, breath work, stuff like that. Um, I'm wondering, you were talking about learning both like techniques around breath work, um, and Tai Chi and Qi Gong and stuff. What was it in like breath work versus Qi Gong that you kind of related more? Because apparently, like, I obviously breath work is very important, and you teach that as well. Do you
mhm,
just integrate that into Qigong because it has more of the
yeah,
movements?
yeah. I guess what it is like the first level is harmonizing the breath. Once the movement, the natural movement, and so like I look at it, and this is actually another teacher that I met, um, named Chris Chen, who teaches a Korean. He's an acupuncturist that teaches a Korean style of qigong, which is, um, and it's very rigorous. I mean, I was really sweating in this one. So he's a really good teacher, and the style he teaches is really like it's very um, it builds a lot of strength internally. It's really good for getting the key or the chi. People pronounce it different. It doesn't matter. The point is, it's life force energy. In yoga, it's prana. In the Bible, it's manna from heaven. It's that, and in leadership, in landmark, and things like this, and Tony Robbins, it's inspirational energy. It's that fountain of youth, that wellspring of like, and we all know what that's like when you're inspired. You're just unstoppable, right? Um, that is something that's actually, it's an electromagnetic field, and so scientifically speaking, it's an electromagnetic field that we generate. And so the first um, process is in the lungs, and there's actually, so there's a third component. This is what Chris Chen taught me, is that there's a third component most people are missing, which is that it fills and it empties, but it also needs to be cleaned. And this is that, if you notice that, like this chamber, the lungs, fills, empties, the heart fills, empties, these things happen without, like, the heart does it, you don't have to pay attention. The lungs, you can choose to pay attention. The bladder, however, you have to pay attention. It fills and it empties. There's a cleaning component to it, and there's different teas you can drink and these things. But like most people don't consider cleaning their bladder. But the next chamber down, right? Like the other number, right? Like you have to clean that. You can't just pull your pants up and go on your way. You have to clean that. So it fills, it empties, and it needs cleaning. Well, actually, the bladder, actually, the heart, actually, the lungs need cleaning as well, as does everything. They're all, and this is what Chris said, it's a series of tubes that fill and empty on schedule. And when that schedule is off kilter, the balance and harmony of the body is thrown off. So there's a three-part process: filling, emptying, cleaning, filling, emptying, cleaning. And so this is where in the breath, inhale, exhale, and this will so let's do another technique, and this will help too. You'll have this experience so that what I'm about to say will make sense. So um, when people are ready to begin meditation, what I like to call real meditation is unguided, where it's or self-guided. There's no audio, there's no music, there's no um, guided visualization or affirmation or contemplation. There's no um, psychotherapy or hypnosis going on in the process. Those are incredible. I use them myself. They're incredible techniques. They're incredible practices. They're a fantastic bridge to get somebody to the meditative state. When you're ready to do self-guided, one of the first ways that we start, and this is actually, I think, in prayer, a lot of people get this in prayer, is with they'll count the rosary and they'll say a prayer. So that's, I think, where most people experience this is actually something that most people actually do. Um, a lot of people will get it through running or biking. Like a lot of people get it on the other side of exhaustion. Shavasana after yoga. A lot of people get it on the other side of exhaustion, but um, but it's easy to induce, like we did with the focus with the square breathing in just a couple of minutes. So what we're going to do now is just inhaling through the nose into the belly, and then exhaling from the belly out through the nose. We call this riding the breath. Like it's on a string, like a pearl on a string, just bringing it in and letting it back out. And if you count your breaths on your own pace, do 12 in a row. And I'll see you in a few breaths. Okay, let's do 12.
Okay.
All right, welcome back.
Mm-hmm.
So that took even less time than the square breathing, only about a minute, maybe a minute and a half. And you can kind of feel, right? You're in a different space just by consciously taking 12 breaths.
Yeah. This space, though, I wasn't really taking like super slow breaths. I was just taking really deep breaths.
Hmm.
So it was like super energizing. Like I
And
was
that's great. Yeah.
running, running or trying to like, breathe while moving fast is something like that.
Did you notice any particular thoughts coming up while you were breathing?
Just that my sensations in the body were changing. Like I started to feel lightheaded and dizzy. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna close my eyes. I can't keep doing that.
Yeah.
And because I was breathing fast, my heart started beating fast.
Right.
And that's
And so you noticed things, and your mind had a thought, and it alerted you to what was occurring. And
mhm.
for a lot of people, in initially, and I know you meditate, so it's like you're a little bit further along than than generally an intro class. But what I've noticed is that I'll get feedback. I'll say, "Did you make it to 12?" And most people will say no, that they were distracted by their own thoughts and they didn't even get to 12. And so if if a person can't count to 12 without being distracted, I call this the priority list. These are the top things that are at the top of the priority list that need your attention. And if you don't pay attention to them, they get louder and louder and louder until they become, and especially if they're things you can't do anything about or not yet, this is where a lot of people develop anxieties and nervous habits and things like that. So so I instruct people, just count to 12. And if you lose count, start over from one. A lot of people try to fib. They're like, oh, I think I was at four, and they just continue from four. Well, think about how that shows up in your life if you can't even be honest with yourself about what number you're counting to. And so 12 breaths will take about a minute or two. That's a good check-in to see like where you're at. You personally in this moment felt energized and felt maybe even a little lightheaded. So like just in consciously paying attention to yourself, it threw off your rhythm into a little bit of like a disorientation, right?
Right.
But with a little bit of practice and it's like anything going to the gym. Like at first there's going to be soreness and a kind of, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't like this. Right. But then once you acclimate to it, that's what our bodies and our minds do. So if you live in Florida and then you suddenly visit Colorado, like you're going to be freezing. But if you were to move there in 6 months, you'll be shoveling snow in your shorts, and then go back home to visit Florida, and you're like dying because it's so hot, because we acclimate. So giving enough time. This is what's so important is behavior shifts and training to do new behaviors, new rituals takes time, and it takes getting used to. And then once you get over the hump of the resistance, um, to to yourself becoming and changing and integrating into a new identity, then you know it becomes something that you can drop into that state. You'll take this breath and it'll be like the longest, deepest breath ever, and 12 breaths can take 5 minutes. Um, but generally speaking, 12 breaths is about a minute, 2 minutes. Multiplied by 36 breaths is about 5 minutes. And then multiplied by three, again, 108 breaths is about good 15-minute practice. So I tell people, just start there. Like, you don't need to be guided into that. It actually is something that when you do, you'll start to, and then we can work on further, how to handle the thoughts that are coming up and what they represent and what the best. And these are the faculties of meditation. There's so many different techniques and abilities um, that are derived in the practice, but they ultimately end up in more self-awareness, more self-reflection, more self-esteem, and then therefore more self-love, and then more fully authentic identity, and then therefore showing up in the world as the best possible self. And then as a result, extreme behavior shifts for the positive, and that's where people start, you know, performing better in all areas of their life because they're showing up truly, um, with that inspirational energy, that mana, that prana, that chi, that they fill themselves up. That's not something you can go and buy at the store. It's
Mhm.
not like a Red Bull. It's you.
No,
You
it's
keep.
not.
It's like you. And then at the end of the day, this is it's an electromagnetic frequency that the body is generating, that actually is, um, the fundamental nature of what we're made up of. There's polarity, that we're electromagnetic beings. And so, maybe we should do like maybe one more question, and then we'll do the final practice, which you'll actually feel this magnetism. um,
Sure. So I started to think about something while we were talking. Um, and it's this concept of noticing. And I feel like meditation is kind of the art and science of noticing.
Hmm.
Um, and I spent a lot of my time in my life noticing. That just was always interesting to me and observing. And I was wondering, how is this concept of noticing showing up in the culture that we live in now? How do you see it shifting? Because I can't quite
Sure.
tell like why it's not important to more people, right? Because I,
Okay.
for me, it's so important.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I was just wondering what your perspective is on that.
Ooh, good question. Well, some other people do seem to have a complete lack of self-awareness, right? And they don't notice, and they're not responsible in their behavior. Understanding that the fundamentals of duality, cause and effect, contrast, right? And that one of my mentors, Peter Sage, says, with contrast and context, it's like, what's more important, the words that are written on the page or the page that holds them? If it weren't for the whiteness of the page holding the letters, you wouldn't be able to see them. But then the context within those letters makes all the difference, because how they're arranged changes how you perceive them and how you feel about them. So all of that is, nothing is more or less than another. It's a harmony and a balance that is integral. That's what creates integrity. And so without one, you can't have the other. So nothing is more or less than another. It's they're self sustaining. And so when you personally, when an individual personally goes and seeks out more awareness and more techniques for mindfulness and things, then the contrast frame widens and the polarity gets stronger. And so you'll notice
Mhm.
how much more out of focus other people might be to you being in more focus. It's so right. And so it actually, by right? It's like, it's funny because you go seeking it out, and then you'll see more of what it's not in other people, because of that focus. And that's what's really cool about our faculty of kind of riding the fractal, like the wave that we choose to see opens up, and we get more of, you know uh, uh, and so like the fractal, the Mandelbrot, like they discovered, if they measured in yardsticks the exterior of Great Britain, yardstick by yardstick, it was a particular length, right? But then if they used a foot long ruler, that length was exponentially larger. And then if you measured it by inches, it's exponentially larger. It's like, how is that possible? Well, there's more nooks and crannies when you shorten the measurement. And so mindfulness, right? This is why I said meditation doesn't take time, it gives you time, because you're getting more out of your measurement. You're seeing more in there. And I think what's happening in our culture is that people's filters are becoming very, very bold in that, what gets through and what doesn't get through. And so adaptability, resilience, and the level of comfort that one has with change is crucial um, to be able to have this kind of internal exploration. Because if everything's being filled, I mean, how many things do we flip through before we stop and like something? um, that's all just being filtered, like just garbage, garbage, garbage. But the problem is, it's not, it doesn't go anywhere. It's actually in the mind, um, that and so I guess, where I would go with this is that, in okay, so I think this is worth sharing then, in this context. the in when the first gurus started coming from the East to America, one of them went by the name of Chogyam Trungpa, and he was one of the first Tibetan Buddhists to translate the 84,000 teachings of the Buddha into English. And there were three, they call them baskets of wisdom that came out of that. And the third basket contains what's called the Abhidharma, which is an understanding of how we interrelate with each other in a faculty of how conscious how our ability to experience reality manifests through the brain attaching to the material world or the matrix. Is that and my teacher said it like this: Broop. Let's try to wet my lips. Broop, right, in a fraction of a second, form, abstraction, feelings, perceptions, and consciousness. That in a fraction of a moment, the physical brain perceive it attaches to form. It see all these words, like I use one to describe the other. It it experiences reality in form, and then abstraction. What does that form mean to the identity? And then feelings about it, perceptions about it, and then consciousness. And so if you do this, like you're picking up, like I have something here, picking up, right? So do this with me, like you're picking up staples off of the desk, right? And then hold them, and you can feel the tension in your palm, right? And you can feel the and the longer you hold this, the more painful it's going to become. And so it became very popular. You can let go. It became very popular um, in Buddhism that life is suffering. And something that Chogyam Trungpa taught was that this is like a mistranslation of the word dukkha, and that dukkha meant cluttered space, like this pinching is like this holding of cluttered space. There's a tension there, and that can be a type of suffering, no doubt. But when Buddhists bookend their meditations with a prayer for the liberation of suffering for all beings, the sukha, what they're talking about, is the spaciousness. That's cluttered space should become spaciousness. And as you release that, you can feel like, oh, how nice, right? So um so what um Chogyam Trungpa taught, one of the things that he taught was that these heaps, they call them heaps, they're the five skandhas, um, uh, and that our mind freezes everything. Like this moment, not only is it on a recording, but you and I will be able to go off and we'll remember our own version, and we'll be able to recall that version. And it's like that scene in the movie is like that film negative exists in the mind, and it doesn't go anywhere. And it's there and it can be recalled, and it might be fuzzier than another. And like I said, flipping through things on social media, it might be super fuzzy, but you can kind of recall, like, oh yeah, I flipped by this and that. It's frozen in the mind. And so if you go to the place inside your skull where you would say that the tension of your mind resides, you can kind of feel the weight of your brain, and you can feel in there the tension. You can imagine it like a giant block of ice. And so as you sit here and turn inward, like, how big is this block of ice? That is the ice that is frozen everything that you've ever experienced. And so meditation, one mantra, that a phrase that we repeat um, to bring us into a meditative state, into a trance-like state, is ice into water. And so you can repeat that with me silently to yourself: ice into water, ice into water. So you inhale ice and you exhale into water. And you can actually feel it dripping, like moving downward towards your heart. And so the wisdom center, when it's overloaded, there's this tension, this big block of ice. The heart's faculty as the compassion, so the wisdom center receives data. The compassion center processes it without attachment or judgment, just loving it as it is. And so we melt ice into water, inhaling ice and exhaling into water. Ice into water. And so as that process is moving, it starts to fill up and overflow. And so the lower energy center, the creative center, the digestive organs, they're meant, as I was saying earlier, to release waste and to absorb nutrients. So whatever is coming in, right, here, 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 and here, that's stuck in the ice, melts into the water, is loved with no judgment, and then it overflows, and what's meant to stay is absorbed, and what's meant to leave is released. And so we do ice. So you inhale into the brain, ice, and you exhale into water. And then you inhale into the heart, water, and exhale into the belly, into steam. Inhaling to the brain, ice, into water, water, into steam. And we let this rejuvenating, refreshing steam fill up our bodies as that which we've experienced gets processed and integrated. And so normally I would do like a 15-minute ice into water, water into steam. But now that you know the mantra, you can go ahead and do it on your own. And then you can set it on autopilot and it will, that process. And then you go check and and you can even check right now, like, is the ice less? Even incrementally so from before. And that's because it's biology at work. It's a natural function of being a human being that we need to process and we need to. So like all of that stuff, a lot of it's junk mail. So how do you empty the how do you empty the trash bin? By letting the heart process it and then letting the digestive system absorb and release.
It's a beautiful
So
visual as well.
I'm glad you
That
liked it.
whole cycle of, different states of water and how that connects. And we are water, so
Mhm. Yeah,
it also makes sense there. Thank you for that practice. That it's like the visual really makes sense with how you breathe in and where you focus as well. It like totally makes sense. So thank you so much for sharing that. Did you
absolutely.
want to go share something as an ending, like a
Yeah,
movement or another practice?
yeah. I think that we've gone through all of this discussion. But one of my favorite teachers, Jiddu Krishnamurti, says that you must become a light to oneself. And in order to do that, it's like pistachio ice cream. I can describe it, but like, what is that flavor? And until you've had it, there's no going back. Once you have, then you know, and until you do, it's indescribable. So, um, for everybody watching, and I know that kind of got sidetracked with the ice into water, but it's just so awesome. I had to share it. Um, let's do let's do a qigong called the Five Elements. I have, I have videos that I've released for people to practice on their own. This is one of the ones that I've actually released. So this is something that people will be able to, if this resonates with anybody watching, like there is a video that you can go to um, at relaxwithadam.com in the video section, um, and this is called the Five Elements. It's a nice introduction to qigong, cultivation of life force energy. Um, So what we're going to do, let's start by rubbing the hands together. Actually, just for contrast, just take a notice of how your hands feel right now, right? And so we're going to check in with that later. So rub the hands together. And then you're going to bring the palms in front of the belly button, in front of the navel, and then facing each other, and then down by about 2 or 3 inches. And you're going to just center your awareness between the palms. And when you do that, you'll feel your posture kind of sinks into your hips. And so just bring your feet so that they're about shoulder width apart and facing straight forward and parallel. And tuck your tailbone just a little bit so that your tailbone's tucked, which will bring your chest up a little bit and you'll feel your spine gets activated. So just lift your rib cage out of your hips a little bit and then relax your shoulders. And then you'll feel like there's a string pulling the back of your skull up, and just let your body hang on that string like clothes on a hanger. And just feel like if you rock into the balls of your feet into your heels, like back and forth, you'll find this kind of equilibrium where your body's completely buoyant, like you're floating in water. Okay. And so the first element is water. The season is winter. The energy wants to descend, and the color is a bright sapphire blue emanating from your kidneys. And the movement is to inhale into the hips and up the body like this, and exhale at the temples, out and down. So inhale in and up, and exhale out and down. And just repeat that at your own pace, trying to visualize like you're moving a ball of blue light, just allowing the color blue to cycle the descending water of the kidneys. And then bring the palms back to the original position in front of the navel and down by about 2 or 3 inches. And just center your awareness between your palms, noticing what you notice. And then bring your palms parallel to the ground so that they're flat and facing the earth as you allow the descending water energy of your kidneys to run its course. The second element is wood. The season is springtime. The energy wants to thrust upward. The color is a bright emerald green emanating from your liver, which is on the right-hand side below the rib cage. It's the filter of the body. So we visualize that we're scooping green energy up and then push it down the front of the body, the palms facing down, and then separating and pressing down along the hips and along the sides of the legs, and then scooping, lifting green energy up like you're putting on a cape, and then pushing it down the front and down the sides. And then continue at your own pace, Inhaling up, exhaling down. One more time. And then keep your palms facing the earth after this last time. And allow the upward thrusting energy of your liver to run its course throughout your body. And then center your awareness in the space between the earth and your palms as the blue sapphire light of your kidneys and the green emerald light of your liver bounce back and forth from the earth to your palms. The third element is fire. The season is early summer. The energy wants to expand, and the color is a bright ruby red emanating from your heart. So you're going to tuck your fingertips towards your heart as you round the back and the shoulders like this. And then you're going to exhale, pushing red ruby light out into the room at a 45-degree angle in front of you. Inhaling red ruby light in, and exhaling, pushing red ruby light out. One more time. And then bring your palms back to the sides, parallel to the earth, as you allow the expanding energy of your heart to run its course throughout your body. And then center your awareness in the space between the palms and the earth as the blue sapphire light of your kidneys, green emerald light of your liver, and the red ruby light of your heart bounce back and forth between your palms and the earth. Fourth element is earth. The color is a golden yellow topaz emanating from your spleen. The season is late summer and the energy wants to divide. So make a pyramid by placing the pointer and thumbs together, bringing that up over your forehead and looking straight up into the sky, lifting the rib cage out of the hips, inhaling down and in, and exhaling yellow light back up and out. And with each time, trying to get even more of a stretch. And then the second part, keeping the hands up over the head. You're going to inhale and then twist on the exhale. So exhale to the left, looking straight up, and then inhale to center. Exhale to the right. Inhale center, exhale left. And with each time, you're trying to twist even further from the bottom of your spine all the way to the top in the center of your brain. Inhale and exhale, twist. Letting that golden yellow light wrap all the way around your spine like a corkscrew. The spleen is responsible for synthesizing all the food you eat into nutrients to be absorbed by the body. I want that to run all throughout, up and down the spine. You should be able to turn all the way around like an owl at some point. And then inhale back to center and exhale your palms back to the earth, allowing the golden yellow topaz light of your spleen to run its course throughout your body. And then centering your awareness in the space between the earth and your palms as the blue sapphire light of your kidneys and green emerald light of your liver and red ruby light of your heart and golden topaz light of your spleen bounce back and forth between your palms and the earth. The fifth element is metal. The season is autumn. The color combines all of the previous colors into a sparkling rainbow white diamond light that emanates from your lungs. And the movement is to contract. So you'll bring your palms in front of the lungs about 2 to 3 inches apart, facing each other. And you're going to hinge at the elbows as you inhale out, and the palms stay straight up, and then exhale in with a sound as you clean the lungs. Inhale out, and then exhale in. And then on this last time, keep your palms together for the second part to nourish the lungs. You're going to inhale and exhale through the nose, making almost no sound if you can, and just let go of the hands just loosely, inhaling and exhaling. Letting that sparkling rainbow white diamond light purify the entire body. And you may even feel a bit of a pressure as you bring your palms back together. And then on this last time, just holding the palms in front of the lungs and just noticing the tingling sensation in the fingertips and the palms. And you can place one palm over the other and allow your heart to receive this energy. And then you can place the palms on your cheeks and the fingertips on your forehead and allow your brain to receive this healing energy. And then with one palm over the other, you can take all the energy that's left and bring it in. There's a space if you find your navel about 3 fingers below. If you There's a point where if you touch it, there's a soft spot. They say it's like a match lighting another match to illuminate a pathway into the garden where this pool of liquid light, this elixir field, is your lower dantian, your creative center, is the primary battery. And you can just collect all this energy in and just let the way that you feel inside your body be like a battery status indicator as you feel yourself charging up. And just let the light shine out of your eyes. Let your eyelids open and let this light shine out. And that was the 5 elements. Um, Thank you for practicing with me, and thank you for letting me share all these things that I'm so passionate about, and all my opinions and narratives and and perspectives on them. And you know, this was the, it was nice. It was nice to share with you. I think in the moment earlier, um, with that mantra, ice into water and water into steam, like that one's super, super powerful. It just like get that glacier down to an ice cube, and then it's like, and then you walk into the next moment of your life and it's like clear, like
Yeah,
so.
thank you as well. And I really appreciate kind of you sharing these practices. And I think they make so much sense and they're like so understandable. So they're wonderful. And thank you for everything.